All right. Let's get started. Chimmy gave me a. Hold on, let me start back just a little bit. So let's see what Chiyemi is doing. All right. The girl herself was too hungover to eat anything. I did take the opportunity to pay her back for last night's drinks in person, though. All right. And then we made our way to the dining hall.
この岩って何なの？
一応お守りみたいなもの。
よそでは見たことないよ。
ああ、言われたらそうかも。
She led me along a narrower path than I followed earlier. It didn't seem like any cars used this one. It was very farmy, I guess. This area was also littered with those boulders. Some were cracked, broken, or half buried in the field. They were clearly religious symbols, but it didn't look like they were that important these days. Or were they? Now that I knew that I was safe, I once again became curious about this
あ、
place.
人だ。
He was working on the field.
たくみ兄ちゃんだ。おはよ
Timmy waved her hand. The men responded but froze mid-wave.
う。じゃあ行きましょう。
いいの？多分あの人、僕の存在に驚いたんじゃ。
大丈夫。どうせ後で食堂に来るから、説明はその時にするってことで。
Well, if she said so. As an outsider, I had no choice but to rely on her. This was the part of the village I saw this morning, where the buildings were more densely packed. I didn't notice it back then, but it was actually kind of weird. Basically, it felt desolate. The wooden bungalows in particular were more or less overgrown, buried in tall grass and other greenery. If this was all I saw of the village and someone told me it was abandoned, I'd have easily believed them. However, two of the buildings stood out. There was a hall right beyond the hill. It wasn't that big, but it looked grand and well maintained. The other building was obviously the dining hall. It looked a bit dirty, but I could tell there were people inside. From what I could tell, it was the most lively place in this pure excuse for a community. Suddenly, the three students walked out chatting about something.
あ、知恵ね。と、夫妻さ。
サイドおはよう。ちょっと遅くない？モッチーがバカなことばっか言って遅くなっちゃったんだもん。そうだ、僕が悪だ。味噌汁をよこせ。まあ早足なら間に合うでしょ。みんなしっかり勉強しといで。
Half dashing, the three went up to the path we came from.
みんな高校生なんだ。
そう、山をぐーっと登ったところに分校があるんだ。私、
やたら不便だね。
それでもみんなあの寮に住める分優遇されてるんだけど。
Timmy was entirely straight-faced. There wasn't even a hint of a smile.
さあ、気合を入れて入りましょう。
そうしましょ
気合入んない。
We laughed a little and passed the curtain.
いらっしゃい。あら、
Mm. The inside was as aged as the outside, but it looked well maintained.
ちえみちゃん、お客さん？
The hostess-looking lady asked. Though somewhat aged and fatigued, she was definitely beautiful, and I would concur. There were two others beside her. One was a lady in her 70s or 80s. She was probably the one I saw this morning. The silhouette matched. The other was a man who seemed a bit younger than her, probably in his late 60s. Though they were just sitting there, there was a menacing aura about them.
うん、紹介するね。夫妻師春明さん。昨日の晩、皿長で迷ってたのをちえみが保護しました。
Their reactions were powerful. The lady gasped, while the two elders rose to their feet with alarm. The tension that was already there the moment I walked in reached its peak.
気にするのもわかるけど、これは単なる偶然です。あの子と違ってこの人は素性が明らかだし、バイクで旧道に突っ込んで事故ったって非常に気の毒な事情もある。そんなわけで我々としてはこの人がちゃんと帰れるように手伝ってあげるのがいいとちえみは思います。どうですか皆様方。
After saying all that, Chiemi fell silent. The ball was in their court now.
まあそれは大変。
The lady voiced a harmless opinion, careful not to upset the old people. It was pretty clear who was in charge. They were elders in more ways than one.
じいちゃんはなんで夜に皿長なんぞ言っとったかね。
虫の知らせかな。前の日にあんなことあったし眠れなかったから。
そいじゃやっぱり読み人じゃないんかね。
やめ、タイバー。
From the conversation, it was pretty clear that something had happened before I arrived here. It was probably similar to what happened with me. She mentioned some little girl. Perhaps there was a child who wandered in here like I did. According to Chiemi, the Saranga Rapids were a place of significance around here. It was a place from which dead people came to life, or whatever. Oh, so this is Tay. Must have been the ee lady that Boyd mentioned. And the Yombito must have been a term for the dead who came from there. Apparently, the primary goal here was convincing these elders to approve helping me.
おい、どっから来た？
The old man's voice put my derailed mind back on track.
あ、はい、東京です。いくつじゃ？年は24です。地位より上じゃが。
He chuckled. I immediately realized he was taking a jab at me for hiding behind a younger girl.
申し遅れました。房石春明です。芹沢さんにも紹介された通り、バイクで事故って迷い込みました。どうやら僕は、ここでは異分子のようで、変なことを言ったりしたりして、皆さんに迷惑かけたくないなと。それで、芹沢さんに紹介をお願いしたんですが、僕から改めてお願いします。すぐ出て行きますから、それまでは僕の存在を多めに見ていただけないかと。それと、僕を助けてくれた芹沢さんを責めないであげてください。
春明さん。
おそらく芹沢さんは、ここの常識を外れたところで僕を助けてくれたんだと思うんです。学生たちもみんな驚いてた。
まあ
これでも大人です。自分の責任は自分で取りますし、皆さんにかけた迷惑は可能な限り償います。ですので、どうかお願いします。
I bowed my head.
ちゃんとしとる、タイバー。
あたしゃすかんわね。そんなに髪茶色に染めてから。
Shit, I forgot that I didn't look very presentable to more traditionalist people.
よそは皆こうよ。はよう返せばええ。
ほいじゃ好きにしなさいね。
I guess I got their half-hearted approval.
春明。春か。うちの孫も春じゃ。紛らわしい。あ、もしかして
そう、春ちゃんのおじいさんの牧島勘三さんよ。
どうも。
I didn't know what else to say. Haru-chan and I weren't on the best of terms so far. Anyway, it seemed like we were past the difficult part.
皿長に突っ込んだか。いえ、コンビニで道を聞いた後、脇道に入って未舗装になったところで滑り落ちて横転しました。で、皿長登ったか。なぜ途中で引き返さねえ。
He wasn't impressed by my choice of actions. It just hit me that I had no idea how much time passed between the crash and my meeting with Chiemi.
わしと匠で見てきちゃる。
匠は他を見よるわよ。
タエバ、追い出す思うて手伝わせ。
カンちゃんはいっつもそうね。
ばあちゃん、おやさん、どうした？
Damn, this dude is swole. This man is a giant and he is swole. We're joined by a new inhabitant.
ちえみ、こいつは？
あ、匠兄ちゃん。
Like, I feel threatened and I'm not even in the game. Look how his fist is balled up. I can see his muscles through his shirt. I mean, his face don't look all that threatening though, but it looked like he would punch my lights out if I was there right now, just by looking at him. He need to unball them fists. I can even see his veins through his left hand. Oh, so he was the one we saw on the field. Wow, he sure looked big from up close. All that field work was good for his muscles, clearly. And for what I could tell, he was in his 30s. As Chiemi introduced me and told him of my situation, I found out his name, Takumi Muro.
ああ、そいつは災難だったな。ああ、おやさん。
わしとお前で拾う。
だな。ばあちゃん、こいつ助けっからちょっと待っててな。もう農薬は巻き終わってるから、昼から草買うわ。
匠は優しいね。
こんなもんなんでもないって。すぐ何もなかったようにできるからよ。
そうね。
Nothing, eh?
お兄ちゃんや。
え、僕ですか？はい。
ここは安いず言うてね。あんまりええ場所じゃないんよ。
Hmm? It was the place that wasn't any good, not my presence here?
あたしらもよそのもんが苦手だし、よそのもんも触れんがええ。じゃから、はよ出てお行き。
はい、そのつもりです。
話はついたからだ。
うん、ありがとう、匠兄ちゃん。
I was beginning to understand how things worked here. Although Kanzo Makashimi's voice was the most powerful here, it was also to get Tai-san's approval. Kanzo-san was probably in charge of tackling the settlement's practical problems, while Tai-san provided spiritual and moral directions. And when it was time to be civilized, Takumi-san came and convinced Tai-san, acting as an intermediary. It looked like Takumi-san understood such subtleties, and Chiemi seemed to rely on this side of him.
はい、ここらで一つどうぞ。
The lady brought some tea to the old folks. Perfect timing.
おお、かおりさん。俺には飯頼むぜ。
So that was her name.
ええ、朝早くからお疲れ様でした。大盛
なーに、安水とばあちゃんとかおりさんのためなら、手でもねえよ。
り、まあ、
Oh, is she blushing? These two seem to get along. They looked about the same age too.
さあ、お客さんもご飯にされます？
あ、いえ、いただいてきたので。
それじゃあ、お茶をどうぞ。おにぎりでもお出ししましょう。
ああ、それはそれは。
ごめんなさい、ちょっと急ぎで電話借りていいかな、香織さん。
Oh,
それはいいけど、お茶くらいは。
うん、ありがとう。でもほんと緊急だから行こう、春明さん。
うん。
it didn't look like I could say no. She got me out there quick. I wonder why. We went up the nearby stairways to what seemed like a living space. At the end of the creaky hallway, there was a black rotary phone, a rarity in this day and age.
これがここ、安水唯一の電話だから。
Seriously?
ちなみに 携帯電話はどのキャリアも通じませんので。
そうなのか。でもどこに電話しろって？
ロードサービスとか保険とか、あと必要なら家族にも連絡。
Oh, that made sense. Hell, I should have been the one to say that.
さっきも言ったけど、できるだけここを早く出られた方がいいから、使えるものは何でも使いましょう。
よそ者が歓迎されない場所だから？
そういうことです。
それ以上の詮索は無用と。
ね、春明さんはとっても察しがいい。それはいいことだと思う。ただ、好奇心もとっても強く見える。
バレたか。
バレますとも。でも正直、あんまりいろいろ首突っ込まない方がいいかも。
どうせすぐに別れるんだし。
その通り。
なんだか寂しいな。
お、ちえみちゃんのメアド御所も？
Hell yeah.
くれるならぜひ。
やったー、これで男友達53人
Number 53. Oh man, she pimping.
テンションガタ落ちですわ。
We still went on to exchange our info. I could only hope that being number 53 wasn't as big as a problem as it sounds.
それはともかく、個人的興味で言えば、何が問題になってて、どんな、
おすすめしないな。
なぜかな。
私が不愉快になるから。
あんまり、故郷が好きじゃない？
うん。正直、嫌い。
ここの人とは仲良さそうに見えるけど。
ああ、それは見えるだけですね。私相当の問題児だったんで、ご年配方とは結構気まずいよ。それに、パッと見はわからないいろんなしがらみもあるし。まあ、住人自体はそんなに嫌いじゃないけどね。
With that, I decided to stop prying about this place any further. I'd back away before she came to hate me.
あ、でも、一つだけ聞いていい？
いい度胸。何かな？
室匠さんのこと、好きだったりする？
Oh, seeming a little jealous.
え？私が？
うん。
さすがにそれはないな。匠兄ちゃんかっこいいけど、ごつすぎるし、10以上年違うし、対象外です。それに、匠兄ちゃんは昔から香織さん一筋だし。
やっぱそうなんだ。結婚してるわけじゃないの？
うん。香織さん未亡人だから。
Well, that seemed complicated. That aside, Chimmy had been acting a bit strange. Why had she dragged me away from the tea? It seemed so awkward, too. Assuming she hadn't been jealous of Coyote-san and simply didn't want her to charm me, it would mean that she hadn't wanted me to drink the tea. Why? Also, why she feed me a cup of ramen if I could have gotten food at the dining hall? Looking too deep into things was part of my nature, though things were never as bad as I assumed. I went to call my insurance company where I found out something. Apparently, the village was hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest service station, meaning I was ineligible for the normal service and had to pay extra. And the extra was no small amount, too. It was actually over 100,000 yen. Also, I could have avoided this if I've taken a more expensive plan. This was all my own fault for not taking the bike salesman advice. Shit. Hey, man. I don't blame you. I don't know how much 100,000 yen is, though, but insurance is no joke. I don't want to pay too much money. I want the cheapest plan so I can spend less money. Now let's do yen to USD so we can figure out how much that is. So one Japanese yen is equal to almost as a hundred, tens, hundreds, almost a thousandth of the US dollar. So what is that? A thousandth. So I take off 3 zeros, 100. Oh, here we go, 100. Yeah. Oh, that's a million. I'm about to say, oh, hell no. Let me take off, give me 1 second. A million. Let me take off one more zero then. Oh, that's $900. That is almost 1,000. Damn, almost 1,000 extra yen. That's crazy expensive. Okay. I said I would consider it. It was 924 at the current price. I said I would consider it and hung up. Then I went to back to the dining hall.
あれ、おじいさんたちは。
What if everyone's ghost? The customers had changed completely. Tai-san, Kanzo-san, and Takumi-san were now gone. They were replaced by a character of a juvenile delinquent.
誰だよてめえ。
Who is this man and why is everybody in this town so ripped? Like you can see his chest muscles poking out of his jacket, which is a very nice jacket. He shouted at me. He seemed like he was trying too hard. He then slammed his bowl and chopsticks on the table and stood up to intimidate me.
久石春明です。
あ？なめてんのか。
まあ義継、初対面の方になんて口の利き方を。
うるせえババア。おいてめえ、そいつ誰だよ。
バイクで事故った旅行者の春明さん。
Boy, was that introduction half-assed.
改めてこちら織部香織さんと次男の義継くん、安永くんが長男ね。
安永くんって朝の彼？
そう、よく見たら似てるでしょ。
The Oribes, or Oribes, what an unpredictable family.
兄貴のこと言ってんじゃねえよ。うぜんだよ、ぶっちゃ。
そう言われてもな、モテちゃうからな、ちえ姉ちゃんは。
And from what I seen, that confidence was well justified.
とっとと町へ戻っちまえ、バカ女。バカバカバカ。
どうしよう春明さん、バカは否定できないかも。
なんと、ちえみちゃんはバカだったのか。よーし、バカバカ。
ひどい。
言ってやろうぜ、義継くん。バカバカ。
なんなんだよてめえ。死ねバカにしてんじゃねえよ。
You're pretty conflicted, aren't you?
ごめん、ちえみちゃん。本心じゃないんだ。
おお、見事な連続手のひら返し。このちえみをあっけに取られさせるとはなかなかやるな、春明さん。
ちえみちゃんには負けないぜ。
付き合ってんのかてめえら。
Boy, did I wish. Well, we could have wished if we had a little fun last night.
いい加減になさい義継。とうに遅刻でしょ。着替えて学校。
うるせえ。行かねえよ。
Mumbling something, the kid walked out of the dining hall, leaving his half-full bowl behind.
ごめんなさいね。お恥ずかしいところを。
根は素直ないい子なんですけどね。
Yeah, I can actually see that somewhat.
あ、ところで、牧島さんとムロさんは？
あ、もうバイク拾いに出ましたよ。
まずい。追いかけないと。
うん、場所は分かってるみたいだったし、大丈夫じゃない？
いや、一応ニュートラルにすれば押せるけどさ、操作わかるのかな。あとさすがに手伝うべきでしょ。作業が非効率になっちゃまずいし。
その程度なら手出しはやめときましょう。
なんで？
取りも直さず、春明さんがよそ者だからです。長時間一緒に歩くのはちょっとおすすめできない。
問題になりそうな人たちには思えなかったけど。
そりゃあ二人とも大人だから。でも基本的にこのちえみほどオープンな人はここにはそうそういないからね。春明さんは平気かもだけど、一緒にいると向こうがストレス溜めるかもしれない。ただでさえ今普通じゃないから。
まあそうね。任せろと言われたら手出しをしない方がいいでしょうね。
そうなんですか。
ええ。安水には安水のやり方がある。男の人たちはそれにこだわるから。
A visitor should behave like one. Doing anything more would be uncalled for. It was an old-fashioned way of thinking, but this was an old-fashioned kind of place for sure.
じゃあ、どこで待とうか。
うちに戻って待ちましょう。
Expected as much, but it still made me curious. Normally, you'd expect we sit around and drink some tea right here, so why didn't we? As we waited for Chiemi, casually but uncomfortably told me anything. First, I found out that the people here in Yasumizu were a bit on edge right now. The reason for that was the fact that, excluding me, they had 3 whole outsiders here. I'd assumed this myself from what I knew so far, but apparently yesterday morning a little girl was found straying around Seranaga Rapids. They couldn't even find out her name, let alone who her parents were, so they didn't know how to handle her. For now, one of the inhabitants was looking for her. Like I'd been told, the more superstitious inhabitants, Taisan mostly, saw her as a bad omen. I suggested leaving her to the police, but Chiemi didn't seem to think it was a good idea. It barely made sense to me, but if I were to believe her, things around here were such that not even cops could do anything. And apparently the remaining 2 outsiders were a pair of journalists gathering info for a magazine article. Unlike the little girl and I, they come here via the normal route, through Kamifu Jiyoshi, and therefore weren't considered a bad omen or whatever. Still, even normal outsiders put people here on edge. Through this talk, I also got some details about the area itself. So, Yasumizu was a settlement part of an autonomous region called Fujiyoshi Village, or simply Fujiyoshi. It also been on the map I had been shown at the store. Fujiyoshi was split into 2 areas, Yasumizu and Kamifujiyoshi. They were separated by a mountain. Okay. Going to Kamifujiyoshi took about an hour by foot or 20 minutes by car on the winding but paved road. Side note, the school students went to was in Kamifujiyoshi. These 2 settlements had ties so strong they shared customs and culture. Chiemi said the local seasonal vets were quite unconventional. I asked her to elaborate, but all she would say was that Yasumizu had special meaning to Fujiyoshi. So let me take a look at this. She was making me more suspicious than I wanted to be. So Mountain Road, Saranaga is right here. Kami Fujiyoshi is at the top of the mountain. Yasumizu is over here. This is the cliff. Did I fall off the cliff? No, I was down this winding road. Okay. Okay. This conversation wasn't nearly as exciting as the one we had last night. Well, at least I found out she didn't have a boyfriend right now. Very intriguing. It was nearly noon when Takumi-san came back, ending my weight gain. Side note, the door was fully open the entire time we waited. It was probably Chiemi's way of saying that nothing bad was happening here. Unfortunately.
バイクってのはおめえもんだな、おやっさん。
去年取った獅子ほどじゃね
I really didn't expect them to just carry it here. Like, sure, there were 2 of them, but just how much mass did you have to haul a 200-kilogram piece of metal so easily? Now I need to do my conversion. Since I am in America, I don't know what the conversion rate for kilograms to pounds is. Is it like 2.74? Oh, 2.02 kilograms. Oh, 1 kilogram is equal to 2.2 pounds. So that's 400, around 400 pounds. Oh, I guess bikes aren't as heavy as I thought. I mean, 400 pounds is a lot. I can't lift 400 pounds. But about 22 people, we can lift 400 pounds. The unpaved road and the river made my sweet ride really damn
どう
muddy.
やってあの崖を上げたんです？
滑車があんだよ。たまに下から物を引き上げなきゃなんねえから。
おい、匠。
と、余計なこと言ってる場合じゃねえ。これ大丈夫なのか？だいぶ。
どうかな。見てみます。
じゃあ、あとは任すぜ。おやっさん、結構かかっちまったから、研ぎ直しは明日まで待ってもらえっか。
I saw them off with a loud arigato. Now then.
手伝おっか？
とりあえず一人でなんとかなるかやってみるよ。
The worst part of the repairs was right at the beginning. I wanted to start by washing it, but that old lady Tai Yamawaki was her full name, got really mad at me. She didn't want any Saranaga mud on the ground here because it was corrupt or something. But then, this plaza was the only place with easy access to a water supply tap, so I did my best and convinced her to let me wash it as close to the edge as possible. Once it was clean, I could start checking what was wrong with it. It actually looked pretty good, bent in places sure, but the wash got rid of the bad sound the wheels made. The only problem was that both tires were flat, and it was a pretty big one.
道具とか持ってきてないの？
うん。
普通バイク旅行とかって持ってくるもんじゃないの？
いざとなればロードサービス呼べばいいかな的なノリだったんで。
不準備。
いや、返す言葉もない。正直やけくそで出発したから冷静でもなかったのかも。
お？事情を聞いてほしそう。
彼女に振られたんだよ。
なんか嘘っぽいな。
It wasn't.
それはともかく、タンク修理道具か。野里屋敷ならあるかもしれないな。
野里屋敷？
安水で一番大きなお家。野里屋敷にないものは安水にはないよ。
Excuse me.
なるほど。じゃあそこの人にお願いしに行こう。
実はあんまり会うのはおすすめできないんだけど、背に腹は変えられないか。
また偉い人が登場？
その上ちょっと人格的にね。
And so, we walked up the hill and arrived at this so-called Nosato mansion. From what I could tell, it was located at the highest point in the settlement. And, like Tiemi said, it was definitely a hell of a building. It had an elegant western design, which would probably look even better if the place were better maintained. The yard was overgrown, and the building itself was pretty much buried in ivy and small trees. If someone told me it was cursed, I'd instantly believe them. Did people actually live
イ
here?
ンターホン生きてるかな？
She pressed the button next to the aged iron gate. Yasumizu was a quiet place, so I could hear the bell ring inside.
もう一度押そうか？
やめとこ。何度も鳴らすと心象悪いから。
そんなに気難しい人なの？
そうね。気難しい。いい表現だ。
I wasn't sure what she meant, but I opted to just wait rather than ask more questions. Soon enough, the person in question walked out of the mansion.
なんだ？誰だ？
He wasn't young, but he didn't look middle-aged either. He certainly looked high-strung, that much for sure.
どうも、野里さん。芹沢です。
知っている。芹沢千恵美。そっちの青年は存じ上げないがね。
春明さん、こちら野里清之助さん。清之助さん、事故車の久石春明さんです。
That introduction was the briefest one yet.
なんだって？
I explained the situation again. He furrowed his brow when I mentioned the Saranaga, in addition to the reason we were here.
というわけで、早々にここから出ていくためにも、修理道具をお持ちだったら貸していただけないかと。
タイヤはチューブですかね？
Huh?
一 一応パッチもあるがね、チューブタイヤだったら素人には難しいんじゃないのか。できるならいいがね。ああ、チューブがバーストしてたら交換するしかないが、替えはさすがに持っておらんよ。譲る義理もないがね。
すみません。ちょっとそのあたりあんまり詳しくないまま乗っちゃったんで。
ちょっと話にならんね。おとなしく何十万だかの勉強料を払って拾ってもらうのをおすすめしよう。
I had no retort to that.
野里さん、多分ですけど今の時期これ以上よその車がここに入るとか良くないんじゃないですか。
はあ、君は間違いりだろう。未だにそんなもの信じてるのかね。
私はともかくじいさまばあさま方がちょっとここ
安水の連中の事情は知らんよ。私にどうしろと。油まみれになってパンク修理しろと。
いや、そこまでなくても藤吉の長者として困ってるマロードを助けるのにお力添えをいただけないかと。
困った時だけ長者を頼るのではなく、安水流のもてなしでもしたらどうかね。
What?
突き落とすんだったか。
Oh, yeah, what?
いや、そんな言っちゃダメですよ。
Jimmy's tone was slightly off. I could feel a bit of irritation behind her words.
本当お恥ずかしい限りなんですが、なんとかしてみるんで道具だけ貸してもらえませんか。
なんだと。
道具やらキットやら仮に入るだけで、作業は別のところでしますから。もちろんお代。
まあ構わんがね。下手に物を破損させたりしたら弁償してもらうぞ。学生だか知らんがきっちりしてもらう。
Then he pointed me to the garage and walked back to the mansion.
いやー、なんとかならない気がしてきた。チューブがバーストってなんだろう。
春明さんかっこ悪い。
バイク乗りならスパナ一本で何でも修理してみせろと。
まあわかりませんけど、なんかそういうメカに強い感じ出したらグッとくる女は多いのでは。
じゃあ野里氏にはグッときたと。
いやー、どうせ知ったかぶりだから。あの人多分自分じゃ整備もできないよ。筋金入りの裏なり病炭だし。
じゃあなぜバイクの整備用品なんて。
野里屋敷は上藤吉にある野里家のもっと大きいお屋敷からいらないものを運んで置いとくような場所らしくてね。5、6年前に清之助さんが単車買ってもらったけど、ろくに乗りこなせなくてお蔵入りにしたとか聞いたことある。
Damn, that was the countryside for you. Couldn't hide your shame if your life depended on it. Anyway, I now knew that the man was condescending, pretentious type. He still helped me out though, and it was true I didn't know much about the bike repair, so I couldn't really get mad.
さ、そうと決まれば使えそうなものは全部持ち出してやろうぜ。
さながら山賊のごとく乗った。私邪魔じゃないかな。
いや、適当に話してないと気がめいるんで、相槌打ってくれるだけでも助かる。
The instructions that came with the repair kit told me that my bike tires were rather a difficult type to repair. Apparently, I had to remove the tires, but where did I even start with that? Well, as long as I didn't break it, nothing I could do could be worse than having to call road service down here, so I just tried taking it apart. But as I removed whatever nuts I could, I made the situation even worse than it was. Yeah, this really wasn't a job for an
お
amateur.
兄さん大変そうね。しんちゃんもよかったら食べてね。
わ、ありがとうございます。
なんか大元になってんな。機械つうのはやっぱダメだな。
まあ壊れさえしなきゃ文明の利器は便利だけどね。
日暮れまでに治りそうかい。
かも。最悪なんとかするから安心しておばあちゃん。
I really appreciated how she handled the visitors in my steed.
なあ知恵ね、バイクって免許簡単に取れんの？
どうだろう。原付なら簡単よ。私も持ってるし。
中型大型の二輪は結構めんどいよ。普通免許取るのと同じ学科講習もあるし。
ああ、関係ねえだろ。ちなみにそれいくらすんだよ。
これは新車で80万くらいかな。
$8,000 brand new. Wait a minute. 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 So that's 2 zeros I move. I take off. Oh, $8,000. Oh, okay then. I guess that's not that bad.
たっけはたっけバカどうやって貯めんだよ。
That ain't that bad compared to a car.
まあバイトとか頑張ったから。
そんな新車が事故ってなんて。春脇さん気の毒。
千恵美先生、さっきから気にはなってたんだけど、差し入れ僕の分は？
あ、先生思わず全部食べちゃった。春脇さん気の毒。
I didn't want sympathy from the one responsible. As I told her off for not leaving me any food, I somehow removed the tire. I could only hope I'd be able to fix this up. I'd had this thing for less than a month, but the trouble it was putting me through made me feel somewhat dear to me. I wanted to fire it up again and make it go as fast as it could. Suddenly, I heard an engine. It felt like it was mocking me. Hold on, an engine? Here? I stopped working and turned around to see an unfamiliar van drive into the plaza. Bearing the classic looking piece of junk in the Nasato's garage, this was the first time I seen a car here. As far as I knew, no one living here could actually own the running car,
さっき言っ
so
た記者さんたちだね。
I knew it. Once the van stopped, a lady stepped out of it.
こんにちは。
Oh, she's pretty.
どうも。今日もご迷惑おかけします。これまで見ないお方ね。
どうも、自己春秋です。
そこまで自虐的になんなくても。
Crap. That was no time for an inside joke. I quickly introduced myself properly.
ちょっとその辺で事故りましてね。ここに寄せてもらってます。
なるほど、学生さんね。事故は災難だったわね。ちなみに私はこういうものです。
Hisako Mamiya, a freelance writer. Her pen name was Kyuko House.
ちなみに読んだことない？高所9個の記事。
すみません。
だよね。まだまだマイナーだし、そもそも記事載った雑誌、主婦向けとシニア向けだし。
それは難易度高いな。ちなみに何を書いておられるんです？
フードレビュー、変わった食品専門のね。
あれですか？世界で一番臭い缶詰とか、そういう。
そうそう。まあシュールなんて今更ネタになんないから、国内に絞ってマイナーな珍味を探し歩いてるわけ。そんなわけで、調理に変わった料理があるとか情報があったらぜひちょうだい。日本全国どこでも行くから。
ラボの後輩がキャンパス内で取ったキノコで豚汁作ったら集団幻覚が起きまして。
They had some drugs.
思いつきと毒物は却下ね。
As we chatted, I became curious.
そういえば取材の方はお二人とか。
ええ、もう一人いるわ。ちょっと降りてくるのに時間が。あ、来た来た。
I looked at the van and became completely awestruck. It felt like the van had shed its skin or something. That made no sense, but seriously, how did this fit in here? Oh, this is a big man. He was a gargantuan. The Kami-san was something, but this man was on the level of a foreign heavyweight wrestler. Though, unlike Takumi-san, this man was primarily fat rather than muscle. As he walked out of the driver's seat, the van shook wildly.
写真家の橋本雄大さんよ。こちらは私よりもっとずっと有名。オールラウンドでご活躍中で、写真はきっと気づかないうちに何枚か目にしてるはずよ。
I didn't know much about photography, but I was definitely convinced. There was a certain kind of authority or gravity around him. He wasn't saying a word, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking.
どうもはじめまして。久石春明です。
Was he even alive?
どうも。
After a strange pause, he slowly bowed like the moving mountain he was, and greeted me with a voice like a titan. He seemed somewhat difficult to interact with.
今日で最終日でしたっけ？ええ、オリレさんが秘蔵の獅子なれを開けてくださるってことなので。よその人に耐えられるかな。まあ、胃薬も持ってきてるから大丈夫でしょ。
And so, Mamiyashi and Hashimotoshi walked off to the dining hall. Who would have thought that such a beauty was a delicacy hunter? I had to admit that gap was kind of charming. As intrigued as I was, I couldn't waste any more time. I had to fix my bike already. Whoa! A lot of things that surprised me here in Yasumizu, but nothing as much as
も
this.
しもし
No reaction. At first glance, he looked like a poor man too senile to think and perceive properly.
何かご用ですか？
I made sure to speak as clearly as possible. It didn't look like he understood. I figured it was best to just ignore him and resume the repairs, but
クール。
I looked at him again. He was still just standing there like his soul and brain had left his body. A vacant store, yellow eyes, half open mouth covered in saliva.
クール。
He spoke again.
何が来るんです？
おお。
What? His voice was too hoarse to make it out.
何ですって？
I placed my hand against my ear. Kinda close. He finally understood what I wanted and prepared to whisper something. I brought my ear closer and
狼が来るぞ。
oh, this man tripping. The sudden shout caught me completely off guard and made me fall to the ground. He looked down at me laughing. He clapped and opened his half-toothless mouth into a wide smile.
狼が来るぞ。
Oh, this man is tripping. He bent his body in a weird way, laughed like he was convulsing, turned around and just left.
春明さん。遅かったか。
Chimi had joined the journalist and only just came
何
back.
が遅かったと？
おじいちゃん。知らない人にはああやっていたずらするんだよ。
あれ、ちえみちゃんの？
いやいや、本名は知らないんだ。昔から休みずにいるおじいちゃんだけど、昔からあんな感じ。
ボケてるというか、ちょっとおかしいのか、あの人。
うん。みんな狼じじいって呼んでるけどね。
Named after the boy who cried wolf, I assume. Doesn't work as well though.
狼ね
As far as I knew, there were no wild wolves in Japan. There used to be, but after the last sighting in either Meiji or Showa era, they've been considered extinct here. Modern Japan's image of wolves came from Western fairy tales and the like. It wasn't linked to anything in our culture or life. Even the boy who cried wolf was a Western tale. Did his brand of insanity make him repeat the tale or something? A bit weirded out by the circumstances, I went back to repairing my bike. After a bit more time, I somehow took the rubber from the tires and removed the tubes. Both tires were pierced by some really rusty nails. Fuck! This kind of stuff only happened in the worst of times. Then I applied the patches and filled them with air using a manual pump. I wet the tubes, there was no bubbles, meaning no air was leaving them. Things were looking good. After the high school came back from school and passed by, no one else stopped to talk. Timmy was looking a bit bored now.
なんとかなりそうかも。
え、嘘。あんなにダメっぽかったのに。
悪かったね。まあこれを組み立て直すって大仕事が残ってるけど。
それが終わったら出発できそう？
そうだね。長居するとまずそうなのはよくわかったし。
そう、よかった。
She didn't seem to care that much. Guess I had no chance with her, huh?
もう何時間も缶を詰めっぱなしでしょ？大丈夫？疲れてない？
昼食休憩の機会が誰かさんに奪われたこともあってね。
代わりにクラッカーをあげたじゃないですか。
Like that was enough to say the guy in his mid-20s, some crackers.
まあ僕は大丈夫。もう一頑張りする。君ももう行っていいよ。大体の人とは顔合わせしたような気がするし。
多分あと2人会ってない人がいるかな。
Really? Well, there's no need to, right?
もうちょっといるよ。どうせ暇だから帰ってきたわけだし、することもないし。
Seems like she watching over me.
52人の男友達と遊ぶ選択肢はなかったの？
全言撤回。暇したいから帰ってきたの。街暮らしは面倒も多くて、52人からのメール攻めとかさ。
そっか。
ごめん、52人は嘘。
なんでそんな嘘を。
春明さんに対する牽制？
Why would she pull a tactic like that only to reveal her hand?
ねえ、彼女に振られたって本当？
And now she asks me that?
本当だって。
そっか。
Well, after that relentless assault, it wouldn't be fair unless I played my own card.
なんならこれ乗っていく？
え、これって2人乗りなんだ。
もちろん。一応タンデム用のヘルメットも吊るしてきてるし、まだ乾いてないけど。僕はこのままここを出ていくから、その便でちえみちゃんも外に出るのが都合良ければってことになるけど、ついでにロングツーリングしてみる？時間さえあればどこへだって行くよ。
Flexible, open to fine-tuning, wild, and charming. This was a good date invitation if I said so myself.
いいね、素敵。都合、問題ないよ。
Oh, okay. Okay.
じゃあ、荷物まとめてくるね。
Oh. Jimmy smiled and turned around to head to her place. She then looked back at me and...
急いだ方がいいよ。ちえみさんの気が変わらないうちにね。
はいはい、もちろん。
Well, that made me motivated. This was one tiring trip, but at least I met someone good along the way. I just forget everything I didn't want to remember while on the road with her. I could only hope that clever girl and I would eventually grow closer. With that ulterior motive in mind, I resumed rebuilding the bike. After several failed attempts, I was finally making some good progress putting the bike back together. Afternoon had passed and it was almost evening. At the rate I was going, I'd definitely be working while it was dark. Would that even be possible? It might be way past midnight by the time I was done. Jimmy might dump me for that. Man, life sure was hard. The plaza I worked in was now totally empty. There was no one around. All I could hear was the wind, the frogs, and the tools in my hand. It was desolate to say the least. I suddenly felt really weak. It made me keenly aware of the place in a place I didn't belong in. Now I was preparing to escape. It was an oppressive atmosphere, like the bars of a cage were slowly swinging shut. What's this, Harukai? Think you're going to get attacked or something? No, I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't work. As I became more conscious of my surroundings, I began to hear things I hadn't noticed before. I heard a voice. Someone was singing. It was an inarticulate little girl's voice. I stopped my work. Before I knew it, I put my tools down and gone looking for the source. Was I that starved for human presence? Or did the malaise make me feel like I was in danger? I walked down the hill to where the sun was coming from. Past the tall grass, I arrived. It was a strange sight. The field was covered in tall grass. There were countless rocks peeking out of it. Unlike the boulders all over Yasumizu, these were only up to my waist. They looked like gravestones. The field extended into the dusky western skies before ending at a cliff. This was the lowest spot in Yasumizu, the border to Saranaga. There was a loud pine right at the edge, large. The evening sun, the stones, and the pine shadows gave the field a strange aura. A little girl was running through it. Her steps were awkward. At this moment, this space was alien. I felt like I was looking at a Giorgio de Chirico painting. The place felt like it didn't belong in this world. Chirico. Suddenly, I came to understand this place was special. It was a sacred, mystical ground that no outsiders were welcome. The girl fell.
大丈夫？
Run with no hesitation. The little girl. Help us. Half crying, muddy clothes, new grays on the band-aid covered kneecap. I console little girl, push away, run. Someone appears, girl, saw once me. Girl, weave, incomprehensible phrase. Hide behind little girl, fear, eyes and hostility, eyes. Girl, hug little girl, warn me. Me, girl, be what the fuck is going on? Miss, me, girl, behind, missed, missed, me, girl, behind, miss. What the fuck is this? Me, turn around, run. Where? Shit. In the days I came back to the plaza, suddenly Chiemi shook me, bringing me back to my senses.
ごめん。すぐ作業に戻るから。
何言ってるの？もうダメ、間に合わない。春秋さんも隠れて。
I couldn't understand what she was getting at.
何やってんだチーミー、とっとと部屋に戻れ。
でも春秋さんが。
ほっとけそんなよそ者。俺はおやっさんと他の連中んち回るから絶対戻れよチーミー。
I couldn't understand what were these two doing, what scared them so much. It didn't take long for me to find out. I looked down the hill from Saranaga. Beyond the field I'd just been in came a rising haze. It was so dense you could easily call it mist. It moved strangely like a living creature as it flowed into the plaza. Chiemi pulled me by the hand.
何がなんだか頭がなん
今は我慢して。どこか鍵のかかるところに一人で入るの。出ないと死んじゃう。
どういうことなの？理由を
だけは言うことを聞いて。
Albeit hesitantly, I did as she said. We ran up the hill and crossed a rice field path until we made it to a simple outhouse.
ここならなんとか。
本当、何事なんだ？確かにすごい霧だけど、そんな慌てることじゃ。
いい？春明さん、詳しく説明してる時間はない。だからお願いだから、今から言うことを絶対に守って。今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて、絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
My mind was pretty clear by this point, so much so that I began to wonder why it was clouded into now. Because of that, I could easily understand exactly what she and me said, despite how weird it was. I also could see she was really desperate. What are these 3, 8, 19, and 20s hiding in the outhouse?
また、とんでもない指示が来たもんだ。
I don't know what is going on with that. Give me 1 second. This is getting crazy. Alright. What is
言
going
っと
on?
くけど、相当な無茶ぶりだからね。ノルマクリアの暁には、相当な見返りと説明を要求するから。
いいよ、全部話す。だから今晩を生き延びて。
The words, the teary smile, none of it looked fake.
じゃあね、君も急ぐんでしょ？
それじゃ、春明さん、
何？
明日言うから。
Leaving me one hell of a homework assignment, she and me ran off. The plaza was covered in mist by now. I could see it rising to take over the fields too. Anyway, a promise was a promise. 10 minutes later, I began to wonder what I was doing. Was I really supposed to spend the night here? This outhouse wasn't like a prefab you find in construction sites. It was just a shack built by hand. It merely happened to have a toilet unit installed. It was Japanese style, so I couldn't even sit down. All I could do was stand. Another problem, it was a type of toilet that periodically had to be pumped empty, so the smell was really bad. Sure, there was a cover on the toilet unit, but without any kind of air freshener anywhere, the smell of ammonia could only do so much. The only good thing about being here was that if I had to go to the toilet, well, mission complete, but what of it? Again, was I really supposed to spend the night here? The question quickly made me realize how stupid this was, and I began making assumptions to make this easier for myself. Was I being pranked, or was everyone here just crazy? Hell, the mist had already filled the surroundings, and there was no way that this shabby outhouse protected me from it. The air here already felt misty and damp. The temperature here was low, so I could still bear it somewhat, but staying here all night would make me all wet. Again, I wasn't safe from the mist here. That considered, I'd probably be better off sleeping in the grass outside than staying here. The reasonable part of my mind urged me to stop playing along with these hicks. However,
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて、絶対に物音一つ立てないで。いいよ、全部話す。だから今晩を生き延びて。
my sense of duty made it hard for me to break the promise I made to her. Actually, that wasn't quite true. I was more intrigued by the prospect of learning more about this place. Anyway, I took the time to compile what I find out today. This was the Yasumizu settlement, a special part of Fujiyoshi, and it was situated right next to the Seranaga Rapids. The people lived here were Chiemi Serizawa, Yasunaga Oribe, his family Kaori Oribe, and Yashisuga Oribe, Chikamochi, Kamashori, Haru Makashimi, her granddad Kanzo Makashima, Tai Yamawaki, Takumi Muro, Kiyonosuke Nasato. It seemed like he was from Kami Fujiyoshi, the place on the other side of the mountain, but for some reason he lived here now. And finally, the old man who cried wolf. There were 11 people I met, and Chiyomi said I had 2 more left. That could only mean that the 2 I met by the pine were the ones. A little girl, she was probably the child that strayed into Saranaga yesterday morning. And then there was a fantastical looking white haired woman clad in strange clothing. She was probably the one I seen in the morning. The fact I seen her twice made it likely she was indeed real, but with how mysterious this place was, I couldn't rule out the possibility she was an illusion. According to Chiemi, the little girl was being looked after by someone in the village, so I could only assume that the white-haired woman was the one. If I counted the little girl, it would mean that Yasumizu had 13 inhabitants. Then there were the 2 journalists, Hisaku Mamiya and Yudai Hashimoto. Add me to that and you had a total of 3 outsider, but I put that aside for now. Anyway, time for an assessment. Yesterday morning, a little girl strayed into Saranaga. To make it worse, no one, not even herself, knew anything about her. She instantly got branded as an ill omen. The next day, Chiemi, who was in Saranaga for some reason, found me there. They recognized me as a proper lost person, but since I came through Saranaga, I was also branded as an ill omen. From what Kiyonosuke Nasato she said, it was safe to assume that it used to be customary to throw people like us into the Saranaga. And then there was the mist. The girl had said something mysterious. Prepare for the feast when the evening mist arrives. I could only assume it was related to the same superstitions. After all, the mist came from Saranaga itself, and it in the river seemed to be central to the local customs and ideals. With that in mind, how was it dangerous? What was going to happen now? Yamabito, as in people from Yomi, the ancient Japanese land of the dead? Dead people came back through Saranaga and they were corrupted? Well, that gave me room for some wild ideas. Was there some sort of pathogen in Saranaga that rose up with the mist? Did it turn people into zombies? Was I about to be a part of Japanese Resident Evil? Wait, that was already Japanese. What if what what if you had a 10% chance to be infected by the mist, but a 100% chance to be infected by another person? That explained why everyone had to isolate themselves like this. If I became a zombie, I probably wouldn't have the mind to unlock the door. So basically, by locking myself in here, I was quarantining myself. I hadn't put all that much thought into that, but that seemed like a good story. Sure, stuff like the borders and the woods didn't fit anywhere into my idea, but it was still interesting. Then again, I knew this was Hicksville and all, but a superstition that science could explain so easily really survived the modern world? It seems so weird.
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
Don't make a sound. Hmm. To be frank, the reason why I spent so much time on these delusions was because I was scared of things I didn't know or understand. In the past, people used attribute stuff like natural phenomena and diseases to gods, devils, yokai, and then do nothing but fear them. They were scared of these manifestations of monsters and whatnot, but on the other hand, it was better than not seeing or not knowing what they were. The fact that you could die to things you couldn't see or understand made life really unreasonable and unfair. That was why it was very logical to give things names and mental images in order to recognize and memorize them. My fear of other things that I didn't understand, that I didn't know was the same, except I wasn't satisfied with just labels and hypotheses. I needed to reach the truth. That aside, what I was feeling right now wasn't a fear of the unknown. It was a realistic, practical fear of something that could endanger my life.
今から一晩ここに入って鍵をかけて絶対に物音一つ立てないで。
That meant that outside lurked something dangerous that could hear sounds. Perhaps it was the so-called dead that rose up from the river. Or maybe, assuming I was right with my Saranaga sickness theory, it was people who came out and beat the shit out of all the diseased people who didn't follow the rules. The wolf is coming. Maybe the wolf was a title given to the killer? Suddenly I heard a scream in the distance. Oh, fam, what's going on? I guess I gotta go out and take a look. Wow, that was some timing. Right as I was about to form a new hypothesis, the proof connecting it all suddenly came to me, and when it was right outside. It had gotten really dark. There was no lights anywhere. The darkness was fear. Unperceived equals unknown equals dangerous equals scary. Leaving this place was dangerous. Dangerous equals scary equals scary equals scary equals scary. Scary things were scary no matter how much logic you applied. But I couldn't discard my desire to know the fear and conquer it. I opened the door and stopped in place. Night wasn't absolute darkness. No matter how dark or cloudy was, the sky always gave some bit of light to us. However, I came to understand that it could be hard to see, and if there was light, everything I saw was covered by a dense mist. Combined with the pale moonlight, it made the area seem milky. It made it hard to get around regardless. I couldn't ignore the screen. There was something beyond this veil. I kept moving forward. Unless my ears were unless my ears were deceiving me, the scream belonged to a woman and had come from the right. I couldn't let myself think that, or rather, I didn't want to think that. The unknown was scary. Personally, I found that my principle made my lifestyle really easily. I had more than enough fear from those which were directly threatening my life. I really didn't want to have the fear of losing someone as well. Change your line of thought, Harukai. Solving the mystery might save someone. Two birds with one stone. I began walking faster. Another scream. It was close. I realized I had to find a way to protect myself. I was unarmed, so I looked around for anything I could use as a weapon. I felt around to see if there were any branches or anything. You know, this shit kinda, I don't usually do games like this. Sadly, all I felt was grass. I went deeper and searched the ground itself. Soon I found something hard. It was a rock. A moment of digging later, I took it in hand. It was a bit smaller than my hand. I almost teared up at how useless it seemed, but it was better than nothing. I looked at the base of my feet and saw the grassy ground. I could easily move forward if I checked the ground using my feet. And since I might have been close to the danger, I need to focus on what was ahead too. I recognized the danger and if possible, get rid of it. I concentrated entirely on that and stepped forward. I couldn't hear the screams anymore, but I could hear other things. A wet sound and the sound of something cracking. It filled my mind with countless things I didn't want to imagine. Even so, I kept walking forward, until I saw it. Oh, my hypotheses were nothing but delusions. The truth was truly something you had to see yourself. But, but why? Why was this so scary in spite of being true? It wasn't supposed to exist. It couldn't exist, after all. It was a wolf with a humanoid body. And there's no such thing as werewolves. The next morning, in a paddy field in Fujiyoshi, Yasumizu third block, someone discovered a thoroughly mangled corpse. The clothes nearby led the discoverers to conclude that it was the traveler, Harukai Fasaishi. Damn, he's he's still moving. Strangely enough, I could perceive this particular moment.
読み人じゃなきにせえ
And so I
さよなら春明さん
was finished off by the girl.
宴が始まりました
The last thing I heard
狼をくぐる
was that what the fuck is happening? Unveiled arrival. Obtain key to Werewolf and Resurrection. You can view it in the keys list. The route unlocked by this key is represented by the same number on the scenario chart. So chart. Okay. Bad ending number 2. Watch Hint Corner. What is Hint Corner? Yes, I guess.
よ、やっちまったな大将。俺のことはまあ気にす。ここは夢と夢の狭間。妻子春秋とかに。
Ah, you ain't gotta tell me twice, Mr. Sheep.
まあ安心してくつろぎな。つってもあんま長っちりはできねえかな。
Alright.
ヒントコーナーにふさわしく大将が困らねえようにありがてえ助言をいくつかくれてやるぜ。まずゲーム的なあれこれを最初に言っておこう。さっきやっちまったと言ったが、実は大将が最初にここに来るのは確定事項だ。つうのも選べる選択肢は一つしかなかったろ。その下は何か鍵マークみてえなのが出て
That's true.
選べなかったはずだ。おっと、だからって最初の芹沢千恵美とのうすらばかり見直してもいいんだぜ。チュートリアルでも一応解説したが、念のためレイジングループの仕組みをおさらいしとくか。大将がさっき実際に食らった通り、レイジングループでは必ず死ぬ。なぜかオーブの選択肢はロックされていて、それを開くために
Damn, I need keys.
キーが必要だからさ。キーはシナリオ中に散らばってる。手に入るときはだいたい命と引き換えさ。どうやら夫妻子春秋の野郎は死んでも記憶を次に持ち越せるらしいな。つうわけで羊さんから大将への最初のアドバイスだ。数あるバッドエンドの中にはキーが手に入るものも多い。意外な結末から
I gotta die so much.
もちろん全部のバッドエンドを見なくても必要なキーを集めて最短クリアすることは可能だ。ま、遊び方は任せるぜ。
Alrighty.
今回のバッドエンド2、題してベンジョマンの最後についてだが、回避するにはキー2が必要だ。だが次はもう問題ねえ。気づいてるか？
Mm-hmm.
ここで死んだ時すでに大将はキー2を入手してる。キー2の内容はメニューの中にキーってボタンがあるから、
Alright.
それ見てくれりゃいいんだが。
Oh, God. Oh, keys. Here we go. Bro, it's 20 keys. That's 20 ways to die. That's crazy. Anyway.
要は夜出歩いたら死ぬってことを夫妻子春秋は身をもって知ったわけだ。この手の一度つまずく系の死亡エンドは今後も何回かあるから、そこん一方、
Okay.
キーを手に入れるのがずっと先になることもある。キーが手に入るときは赤文字ででっかく表示されるから、今後も要注目だぜ。この後だが、夫妻子春秋は振り出しに戻る。つまりゲームの冒頭、最初から読み直してもいいが、今後何十回も死ぬことになるから。だからある程度状況を把握したら、シナリオチャート、大将が一度読み切ったシーンなら、例えば今この瞬間でも画面に出てるチャートボタンを押し、ノーム、ないの、シナリオチャートから、ちなみにここまでで2、今回解放された選択肢を選べば、いよいよ最初の次にロックされた選択肢が出てきたら、右端の方を見てみな。開くために必要なキーの番号はシナリオチャートにも表示される。ちなみに1が手に入るのはすっげー先だ。
I didn't even pay no attention.
つうわけで今回はここまで。次も
I didn't even think it was that.
ダメだったってわけだ。
You know what I'm saying? So 511. Oh. Oh, I died so many times and so quickly. Alrighty. Well, you know what that time is. Time for me to go take a break and go get some sleep. La di da 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 dee.